Hi there. We are back again for another episode of our message behind the music, and today we have Jamie Burch, uh, who works with the Health Brigade in Richmond, and we're going to bring her on to talk about the Health Brigade's services and work. Actually met Jamie. Before the pandemic, Grimalkin had done a benefit show for the Health Brigade, and she actually came out, tabled the event, and shared some of the services they provide and whatnot. They're really great nonprofit health organization in Richmond, and we're gonna bring her on now. Hey,
Good.
how are you doing?
This is my first Instagram Live experience. It's very exciting.
Yeah,
Have-
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk with us about the work that the Health Brigade does. Um, yeah, how about you introduce yourself to everyone, what you do with the Health Brigade, and the work that they do, maybe the services, maybe a brief history, whatever you feel like is good to talk about.
Yeah, right on. So I work in fundraising for the clinic. That can look like a lot of different things. That can mean like meeting with individual donors. That can mean setting up at one of your shows, having a little table at one of your shows, working with your organization. You guys have been really great in supporting us in the past and um, sending percentages of your record sales to Health Brigade to support us. So that always comes through me. I always see that and smile when I see those donations. And yeah, just being out in the community, planning benefit events, awareness raising events. It can take a lot of different formats, but a little bit more about Health Brigade. A lot of folks know us as Fan Free Clinic. That's what we were for about 47 years, I believe. We've been in the Richmond community over 50
Oh,
years.
wow.
5 years ago, we changed our name to Health Brigade, but old heads know us as Fan Free Clinic. We used to be on Hanover Avenue when we got started. I think we're in just a basement of either a church or one of those brownstones. We were started by two doctors, a nurse, and a minister. Sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, but a couple of folks got together. Originally, they were stealing birth control from VCU and just giving it to folks who needed it, just trying to make sure that those who wanted birth control had access to it. It was a lot harder to get back in those days. And then we transitioned to offering services in the 70s when a lot of protests were happening in Richmond. We were like doing street medic services, like mobile street medic
Mhm.
services. We were out there just making sure folks were staying safe, making sure that they got their eyes cleared out as needed if there was tear
Mm.
gas and such. And then in the 80s, we transitioned to offering a lot of HIV and AIDS services for folks who are living with HIV, for folks who are living with HIV and dying from HIV. At that time, there really just weren't a lot of medical services available to folks that were, understanding and supportive. A lot of folks were not being supported by their families. So we had volunteer providers that just kind of walked folks through that process. Sometimes they just needed someone to be there with them throughout the end of their lives. We actually would also collect funding to make sure that those folks could have a proper burial. That was really important to us in the 80s and in the early 90s. Now we have more of a holistic approach to care. We offer primary medical care, mental health and wellness care, and then a variety of health outreach services that can include our comprehensive harm reduction program, better known as a needle exchange. So that just gives folks the tools that they need to use drugs a little bit more safely. And we also have specialty care for the LGBTQ community, including a specialty set of trans health services. So anything you can think of, we probably do a little bit of it.
Yeah, and now I was actually going to ask you what services you do specifically offer for queer and trans LGBTQ plus folks.
We
Yeah.
do primary medical care, HIV and STI testing and prevention services. We have a program called Ryan White Part B, and it's partially a state-run program, but it offers support to folks who are living with HIV. That can be like funding for housing, funding to make sure that all of their essentials are taken care of, just making sure that no one's not receiving the medical support that they need while they're experiencing that. We offer PrEP, the daily pill that you can take to reduce the HIV contraction. We offer mental health and wellness services and a lot of advocacy services. You see us at the General Assembly here and there as well to advocate for our folks.
That's awesome. Yeah, very awesome. And I guess a follow-up question to that would be, so as far as like folks maybe who can't afford different, services, but they need them, how does that work with the Health Brigade?
Yeah, that's an important thing I should mention. So we offer services to folks who are uninsured or Medicaid eligible. So when folks come to us, I think there's a there's a suggested contribution made, but nobody has ever turned away for lack of funds. That's just up to the client or the patient as to what they'd like to support the clinic with. So that kind of help fill in that.
Yeah. And so I suppose that there's, I guess, a way. Is it, I'm sure you're applying for, I'm sorry, I'm sure you're applying for like grant funding and things like that do help in that regard, I imagine.
Oh yeah. A lot of applying for grant funds, also a lot of just working with the community, working to engage donors. We receive a lot of individual funding, which
That's
we
great.
have.
Yeah, very, very good. All right, awesome. And I'm curious how you personally got involved with working in this work in general and also for the Health Brigade specifically.
Yeah, so I went to VCU to the School of Social Work for my graduate degree, and I did a project there. They synced us up with Health Brigade to learn a little bit more about their organizational structure. So I got to really meet all of the leadership and just get a sense of how everything was run. It was like a behind the scenes look at how a charitable clinic operates, and I was just so inspired by it. I was like, I gotta be here. It really struck a chord with me, and it was so supportive of the communities that mean so much to me. So I could not wait to apply for a job, and as soon as I saw that there was one available, I applied.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's really great that you got that experience in school. And I noticed you have like different like credentials or whatever after your name, but I don't know what they are. So I figured I might as well ask you like what are those? Yeah.
So I'm a master of social work, and social work can kind of take two different tracks. I think the one that folks are most familiar with is a clinical track, and that's like direct service, therapy, counseling. I am what is called a macro social worker. So I'm more interested in elements of policy and how organizations are structured and just sustained and organized in a way that can keep it running, really.
Yeah.
It's there are social workers who are people persons. Those are the clinical folks, and then
Yeah.
there's me. I like to create structures and processes, and I also like data too.
Yeah. I can relate to that. And yeah, I mean it's very important work, obviously. Um Yeah, okay. And wanted to ask you, what are some of the other like community organizations or mutual aid groups or folks that you work with or partner with locally or beyond locally? Yeah.
So the one that I do want to mention specifically is we actually just started partnering with Medicaid. And that might seem like obvious, or maybe you would have assumed that we were working with them, but previously we were not accepting patients or clients who were Medicaid eligible because we felt like that wasn't fair to the folks who are in that gap where either they were Medicaid eligible or they couldn't afford health insurance.
Mm.
So we make sure that those folks were being seen. But then we started to realize that was creating an unintentional barrier for some of our trans folks. We offer a lot of trans health services, and folks who were Medicaid eligible, they didn't want to leave our healthcare because they felt like the services we provided were just much more affirming and supportive. And so they were really bummed that they had to leave us because they were Medicaid eligible. And so eventually we were like, we got we got to start accepting Medicaid so that these folks can get back in here and get the care that they're seeking and that they want. So I did want to mention that that's a new partnership for us.
Yeah, I imagine to be eligible for that, is it all these hoops you have to jump through to be able to, or is it I just always
Yeah, yes and no. The good thing is our clinic can help people go through the registration process. They're
Oh,
they're pros at it. We've got some Medicaid navigators,
oh
so
wow.
it's not an easy process.
No.
I'll agree there,
Yeah.
but got folks that really just have a good sense of how to walk someone through that.
Oh, that's so awesome that you have folks that can help people go through that process, 'cause it is very difficult. And I know, like, just from the work I had done previously as a vocational counselor, we would always have to folks would always have to go through like this referral process through like, the Department of Rehab and Aging and Rehab, and and then that in itself is a really long
The
process,
headache.
just to get help or what have you. So, yeah, that's awesome. It's good for me to know too, because now I can, if there is someone who, wants to apply and just doesn't know what to do, I can refer them to you. So that's really great. Yeah, and oh yeah, yeah, go on. You're gonna tell me some more, right? More partner organizations.
Let's see, who can I tell you about? Well, I know that we were going to chat a little bit about organizations that I'm a personal fan of, so I
Yeah,
can share
yeah.
those. So Mutual Aid of RBA, MAD RBA as it's otherwise called, that was a group that got started in the early days of the pandemic, just making sure that folks in the community had access to all the food and hygiene items that they need. They're still continuing to do that. I think they recently opened up a storefront in the
Oh,
north side. Uh,
okay.
they're just they're filling in the gaps where I think a lot of folks, the city of Richmond would rather forget about some folks that really need some extra care and support there. So they're filling in that gap.
Oh, that's
And
great.
another organization that I really like is River City Harm Reduction. We partner with them in some capacity. We receive a lot of in-kind donations of medical supplies. Sometimes we just
Oh,
don't have for those things, so I will share those River City Harm Reduction. They can find folks who are in need of those. They've got a good bank of extra items that can help people stay taken care of. So I love their
yeah.
work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you for sharing those, because I don't know too much about either of them, and I'll definitely look into what they're doing. That's really great. Thank you. And yeah, so what are some of the future goals of the Health Brigade plans that you all have for the future? Yeah.
A major one is we're just trying to hold it down in terms of making sure that the state doesn't roll back a lot of the services that we're offering, especially trans folks. We just don't want to see those rights revoked. We've seen it happening in a lot of other states. We're staying very vigilant. We're staying involved. We just want to make sure that people can access the care that they deserve. So that might involve us being more advocacy based in the upcoming session, but definitely just staying alert, staying awake, watching what's happening.
Yeah.
And then another another thing that we're really going to focus on in the coming year is starting to offer office-based treatments for folks who are experiencing opioid use disorder, or folks that just generally use drugs. If folks want to make a change with that, we want to offer them the services within our walls to kind of make those changes. So that could
That's great.
be based treatment and just different methods that could work for them. Right now we offer safer use items, tools in that sense, just making sure that people have access to clean needles and clean cookers, like better snorting materials, but we want to make sure that if folks want to make a change in the way that they're using, they have the tools to do that through us.
Oh, that's really awesome. Yeah, sounds like you all are doing really important and amazing work. Yeah, and so at Grimalkin, we're striving to make changes within the music industry with like, creating these structures of support for folks because within music, basically, artists are pretty much kind of at the bottom of the bottom, even though, just the way it is right now. And I guess it's been like that for as long as, I don't know, probably since since the beginning for sure. And yeah, and so we're working to make the changes that are positive. And I'm just curious to hear from you all within the healthcare industry. What are some of the changes in the structures, things that you all have to deal with, maybe that could be easier or better, or yeah, anything like, things that you feel would be better if things were done differently, or supports were there that aren't, or that aren't, etc.
Yeah. Um, I can speak for some things that we've started doing, or we really just have always emphasized in the work that we do, that I would love to see other nonprofits kind of acknowledge and maybe consider taking on into their work. I'd really love to just see a continuation of elevating the voices of folks who aren't traditionally heard, really emphasizing trauma-informed care in the workplace. We do that when it comes to the care that we provide to our patients and our clients, but we're also really focused on providing that same kind of trauma-informed care to our staff members and our volunteers. We want to make sure that everyone is receiving the support that they need there. A lot of the work that we do can be, you're absorbing a lot of secondhand trauma, so just really making sure that folks are feeling supported in that capacity. And then another thing that I am starting to see a lot more of in Richmond, and I want to see it continue, is a lot of organizations who are collaborating or forming partnerships with similar organizations so that they can create the most impact in the community, as opposed to just duplicating those services or just kind of muddying the waters in terms of where folks can go to access certain resources.
Yeah, and I know we were talking a little bit before this interview about trauma-informed services, and also, yeah, I'm just in the partnerships too, and I'm very interested in that. And I was thinking, like, how can we make that more accessible or happen more, especially getting organizations like you mentioned together, because I feel like there are many in Richmond that probably, if we're connected better, could do what you're recommending. And yeah, I don't know, like, how does that, how do we bring that, how do we make that happen more, or what your thoughts were about that?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, Really, the only thing that I can imagine being a great first step is just folks talking about mental health more openly in the workplace. I think that it's something that we have kind of introduced as more of a normal conversation to have, especially since the pandemic hit. I think that's impacted a lot of people in a lot of different ways, but mental health is certainly one of them. So just, being a little more open about what you're going through, what you need, what your needs are, how you could be better supported. Um,
Mhm.
that's really from an individual perspective, but as far as
Mhm.
how organizations could really take that work on, I think it's just got to be something that has a lot of buy-in from everybody. And I'm
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, self-advocacy is so important. But you know, health, mental health stuff can still be just a scary thing, or people just don't some people just really don't understand. And so if you're, if you're working at a company, you want to see that happen more. You want to see um, more like trauma informed services, or just that they're available to folks like within a company or whatnot. I think a lot of people are still like very much afraid to talk about their own in a work situation for fear of losing their job or being treated differently because they talk about their difficulties or whatnot. Um, and it would be great if we have come far, and we were talking about that before, that there's like commercials all over TV or whatever now, like about how it's okay and normal to seek help, but and whereas that was not something you'd see before, and you had pointed out, you know, that the pandemic really helped kind of make that conversation, bring that conversation about more to more folks, or more globally, or what have you. But yeah, and just with, and I was curious about, we were talking about it, how trauma, often things like mental health services or trauma informed services, they seem to be kind of like delegated to just, like in the certain fields, like, so obviously healthcare field or education or the vocational counseling or what have you. And it's like, just if you have like, some other kind of job, you're probably not going to come across those services, or folk, might not even know what they are, and yeah, I just thinking about like how we can help like push that forward. Both things, the trauma informed services within the workplace, mental health services, and also you were mentioning about organizations like partnering together, so we're able to actually help people better together. Um, I don't know. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that. I just think it's a really important thing to think about. And I was just really excited to talk to you about it before, too. And I didn't know if there was anything else you wanted to say in that discussion before we move on.
I had a flashback when you were mentioning that. I remember when I interviewed for my current position, they said, "Tell me what you know about trauma-informed care." And I was like, but I think that would actually be a really interesting question to start asking any potential employer. What structures do you have in place for trauma-informed care? And I think
Yeah.
it's just kind of, turn it around on folks. Just make sure that they know that's something that we expect now. We want to see what those structures in place are for. We've
Yeah.
got we're starting to be better about our DEI initiatives. I think trauma informed care should be a part of that too.
Yeah. And uh, it would, and I think if a company, especially if they're a for-profit company, um, if there was somehow a way to get them to see that it actually would probably affect their bottom line positively, if they were taking care of folks. But it just seems like we're so far from that. I mean, they didn't even, most companies don't even want to pay people a a proper wage, and here in Virginia, we're still going with the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, and it's just like it's been like that since like 2006 or something. When if you do the math, it should be like $25 an hour to keep up with inflation. So it's like we're just so behind, in everything. But anyway, that's grim, and that is like, but it's true. But I mean, there's folks like you all that are making a difference for people, and I think that's really important. Yeah, and yeah, and so I guess my next question would be like, how can individual people, um, as well as like organizations like ours, Grimalkin, how can we help you? How can we help the Health Brigade in supporting the work that you do, or even just some of the things that we discussed today about what we want to see better in the world?
Yeah, I would say just spread the word. Please follow us online, follow what we're doing online. I think if you notice that our organization is offering some services that's similar to somewhere else in the community, maybe connect those dots for us. Suggest we have a conversation with them so that we can continue to really just emphasize partnerships in the community. But yeah, just spread the word, because you just never know who might benefit from our services that So just making sure that folks know that they're available just might even bring some new patients in the door, and you could be helping out a friend.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And like I do a lot of volunteer work with the Virginia Anti-Violence Project, and I'm actually on their board, and I'm curious, are are they connected with the Health Brigade, or is there a way where I could suggest that some kind of connection forms there with the Health Brigade? Or
Was it the Virginia Anti-Violence Project you said?
Yes, yeah. I'm just curious if there's something I can do. We actually have a board meeting next Thursday, so something I could bring to the table and say, hey, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, even just doing that, showing up to your board meeting and saying, hey, I know this organization in town. I think you guys might have some similar like elements to your missions. Is there any way you think that they could benefit us, or we could maybe benefit them? I'm happy to start that conversation. Just feeling willing to do that is huge.
Yeah, because they don't have a lot of funding to provide just unlimited support services, but they do have some where they can give free counseling services. It's geared towards LGBTQ plus folks that are survivors of violence, and that could be any kind of violence. Which pretty much, if you're LGBTQ plus, you probably have experienced violence. And then they also do things like temporary housing, or helping people get the medication they need, or rides to places. So there's a whole slew of things they do, and it just seems like I think some of the things that the Health Brigade does, they also do, but maybe there's some way where I also know that they've, like, I think even referred folks to you perhaps because they were unable to take, like they didn't have the funding to take another, client or what have you. So anyway, I will bring it up though, because I feel like there could be something, even if it's just an initial conversation and an awareness about what each of y'all do, together to talk about it or what have you. So awesome.
And I will say,
what'd you say?
I saw a comment in the chat from our executive director. She said, we are connected to them through health outreach. So
okay.
That's good to know.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, if there's anything more that we could do or I could suggest as a board member, I would love to hear that. You don't have to tell me publicly either. Like you could just like email me or something. But yeah, that it sounds like that's great. Awesome. Yeah, and yeah, I just so we believe here at Grimalkin that music can be a vehicle for positive change, um, and you know we're trying to make a positive difference, and so I wanted to like in conclusion here, just if there's anything you can share with us as far as like hopes and dreams, either for yourself or for the Health Brigade or for our future more generally, that you want to end this interview with.
No words of wisdom, unfortunately. I'll just say I really hope that folks continue to be really intentional about community building. I think that's one of the most powerful things we have is community, finding community where you least expect it,
Yeah.
in community in places you think maybe there won't be community. Just have an open mind, try to connect with folks. I think that's going to be really important in the next few years.
Yeah, awesome. And I hope that maybe we can do something together again in the future, to bring more awareness about like some kind of event again. Bring more awareness about the Health Brigade and also our work, of course, too. But yeah, I really appreciate it. And I know I'm like, sometimes I stutter and I'm a little bit awkward. And also, I get really hot in the face when I, so I realize I look like a tomato. But anyway, but anyway, you did great, and I really appreciate that you did this with us, and I hope it helps in some small way or bring some more people awareness about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so
Thank
much. And
you for having us. It was
yeah,
really a pleasure to speak with you.
all right, awesome. Thank you so much, Jamie. We'll talk soon.
Okay,
All right,
bye.
bye. Bye.